Italy. Of all the countries I've ever dreamt of cycling, Italy has long been at the top of the list. A country so rich in history, culture, and cuisine that 100 lifetimes lived there would barely scratch the surface.
How is Italy this pretty? It shouldn't be allowed. I mean, it's actually not fair to other countries.
A country with endlessly beautiful landscapes, from the snow-covered slopes of Mount Etna and the gilded shores of Lake Garda, to the rolling farmland of Calabria and the relentless hills of Tuscany.
If any day breaks me, it's gonna be today. These hills are completely punishing.
A country where even a wrong turn takes you somewhere special, and the right roads will have you grinning from ear to ear.
Cycling really doesn't get much better than this. It's just one of the most beautiful places I've ever been.
So in April of 2026, I set out to cycle the length of Italy, from the island of Sicily in the south, all the way through to the Italian Alps in the north. 2,000 kilometers, and still nowhere near enough. Our journey begins not on mainland Italy, but in the volcanic hills of Sicily, the largest island in the Mediterranean, located just off the toe of Italy's boot.
Hello and welcome to the sunny island of Sicily, where we're here in the town of Taormina at the base of Mount Etna, Europe's largest and most active volcano, which you can see erupting gently behind me, just over there. We're about to embark on a 2,000 kilometer journey to cycle the length of Italy, from here in the south in Sicily, all the way to the north to get to the Italian Alps. Who knows what adventures await us on the road? That's what we're about to find out.
For the next 3 weeks, we'd be following a route I'd mapped out with the help of my Italian friend Gabbo, who'd be joining me later on in the trip. We designed a route together that would take in some of the best cycling roads and sightseeing that Italy has to offer, starting out in Sicily and moving north through the historic cities of Matera, Rome, Siena and Bologna, before skirting the shores of Lake Garda and finally finishing high up in the Italian Alps at the border between Italy and Austria. The route would crisscross Italy's two great mountain ranges, the Apennines in the south and the centre, and the Alps in the north. We'd be riding over 100 kilometres a day and climbing more than 20,000 metres over the 3-week trip. It was going to be an enormous challenge. So I'd enlisted the help of several friends to keep me company, starting with my younger brother Milo, who converts pizza into power more effectively than anyone I've ever met.
2,000 kilometres ahead of us. How are you feeling?
Feeling excited. I'm feeling full. I had an enormous breakfast for lunch. Oh geez, maybe the lack of sleep is catching up to me. Breakfast for lunch.
It was time to finally get going. So we left the main square of Taormina, rode past the ancient Greek theatre built back in the 3rd century BC, and exited the city through the stone-walled gates.
And we are off. We have officially begun the ride. And this one is a real journey of discovery. I've not spent much time in Italy at all. So, from here on north, it's all adventure. I am so excited to finally be going with this one.
I'd always wanted to take a big trip through Italy. It has shaped the world in so many ways, from food and wine and race cars to modern opera and the Mona Lisa. It's a country that loves cycling, with big races like the Giro d'Italia and the Strada Bianche taking place in some of the most beautiful landscapes on the planet. And what better way to explore a country of such riches than on a bicycle? As we set out through Sicily, we faced our first big obstacle of the trip, crossing the Strait of Messina onto mainland Italy. At its narrowest point, the strait is just 3 kilometers across, and people have been proposing a bridge to the mainland since the height of the Roman Empire. But after 2,000 years of off and on again planning, no bridge has ever been built, and the only way to cross is by ferry. After 20 minutes on the ferry, we landed at Villa San Giovanni in the southern region of Calabria. Italy is renowned for its north-south divide when it comes to its population and its economy. The same is true for its tourism. Almost 95% of travellers to Italy go to the north, and the south is largely ignored. But it really shouldn't be. After a couple of hours of cycling through Calabria, I was completely enamoured with it. The cycling is excellent, with quiet, empty roads, historic buildings, and water so blue that it felt rude not to be swimming.
We are all of about 6 hours into our cycle ride, and already I'm totally blown away by how pretty Italy is. We just roared round the corner, and out of nowhere came the town of Silla. This beautiful coastal town built up high on the cliffs. How is Italy this pretty? It shouldn't be allowed. I mean, it's actually not fair to other countries.
100 kilometers and several failed attempts to stop myself gushing over the landscape later, we made it to Parmi, where we were drawn nose first inside the town's favourite pizza shop. We ordered 4 pizzas between the two of us, freshly made and straight from the oven, ravenous after our long first day of riding.
Yeah, that's the one. Start of day 2. How are we feeling? Fresh.
The next 2 days passed in a whirlwind of sandy beaches, hilltop towns, and seductive fruit shops. I'd been told Calabria would be remote and rugged, and it was. We followed overgrown farm roads past magnificent ruins to the town of Tropea, once voted the prettiest village in Italy, and where 6-storey houses are built precariously atop a 60-metre cliff overlooking the sea. As we worked our way out the west coast of Calabria, the southern Apennines began to rise ahead of us, the lower portion of the great mountain range that forms the spine of Italy, and that would come to dominate the days ahead. We stuck to the coast for as long as we could, but eventually the road turned into the mountains, and the only way was up.
As we go up this climb, we are surrounded on both sides by olive groves, and they're so inviting that if this was a bit of Roman mythology, I would crawl up under the tree, feast myself on honey, and probably wake up turned into a donkey. Very tempting, especially on a hot day like today.
We had 1,000 meters of climbing ahead of us, and it was hard and hot work. But soon we left the valley floor and its olive groves behind us, and moved into the land of mountain cherries and conifers still higher up. Throughout, the road remained spectacular, all the way to the summit. And there at the summit, a million miles from civilization, we had a surprise in store.
We found a little village fete in a town called Potam, not quite sure. We have a spinach and sausage ciabatta, and I'm very much looking forward to this. As you can tell, my blood sugar levels are very low.
And the good times didn't end with lunch. On the other side of the climb, the roads became ridiculously good. Wide, well-surfaced and fast, running through a broad valley to the cathedral city of Cosenza.
We're moving into the last couple of kilometers of day 3, and it's really been one of superlatives. One of the best climbs, one of the best descents, one of the best gelatos I've ever had at the bottom of the descent in Cosenza. It's been quite overwhelming the last 3 days, just the quantity of quality things to see, whether it's food, whether it's history, all the rest of it. Very hard to maintain discipline and keep riding.
As evening drew in, we made it to our farm stay, where we encountered the reality of rural Italy on a Sunday. Nothing was open and not a person was to be seen for miles around, just the distant sound of families enjoying their dinners together. So we let ourselves into our accommodation and settled in for the night, as golden hour descended on this quiet corner of Italy.
Look at these tan lines already. This is day 4. It's going to be horrendous. Cheers your legs. Oh. Oh, it's pretty good. So, here we are.
After our big day of climbing, we were now onto the flats. We left the farmstay bright and early after a simple breakfast of ham, cheese and eggs, and rolled down to the valley floor.
So far, it's been an incredibly enjoyable morning. Starting out the day whizzing through the farmlands, and then turned off and are now following the Crati River through a wonderful valley that feels almost like rainforest. I don't feel like I'm in Italy. It's lush, it's green, water flowing everywhere, plants looking very healthy, empty roads.
Well, almost empty roads.
Just had our first encounter with dogs chasing us down the street, and we're in full dog territory now. All fun and games in the Italian countryside until you get eaten by a dog.
Besides the dogs, the Calabrian countryside was tranquil, and by far the biggest obstacle to our riding was our own curiosity, which was piqued by the sight of Castello Federiciano, a grand old castle built in the 10th century to protect the south coast of Italy. It's the kind of place you only find on cycle rides like this, off the main road and away from any big towns. It's the kind of surprise discovery that justifies all the hard kilometers. And the castle wasn't the only distraction that day. As we wound our way through Calabria's lemon groves, the abundant citrus fruits eventually proved too tempting for Milo.
I'm really happy I've done this.
What have you done?
I've taken a lemon from the floor. It's the most bitter thing I've ever had. It's lemon. That's delicious.
Juiced up on a decade's worth of vitamin C, we cycled on to Nova Ciriscalo, a beach town positioned right in the middle of the heel and toe of Italy. And once we'd stashed our bikes and changed out of our cycling gear, we headed down to the beach for a swim, the water deliciously cool after a hot day on the bikes. This would be the last we'd see of the coast in Italy, as we were now heading inland, towards Matera, one of the longest continuously inhabited cities in the world, and one of the places I was most excited to visit on this trip. But first, we had to get there, and a few kilometers into day 5, that was proving much harder than expected.
A little bit of excitement for a Tuesday morning. Ahead of us there is a river we have to cross, and the only bridge for about 15 kilometers upstream or downstream seems to be the motorway bridge.
The motorway was a big no-no, and the only alternate route took us over the mountains and added 50 kilometers to an already long day. So it was back to the drawing board. Across a field we could see a service road running parallel to the motorway, and on satellite imagery it looked like there might be a second bridge. So with no other ideas on the table, we hopped a fence and went searching for the river.
Well, we found the river, and up above us is the motorway bridge. But I'm not sure we're going to be able to ford this. It's quite wide.
If we couldn't cross the river, we'd be really stuck. So after a couple of test runs without our bikes, we decided to go for it, fighting against the current to make it to the other side.
Well done, bro.
Well done yourself.
But this was far from the end of our adventure.
Day 5 has been a navigational challenge. But we're now on some kind of aqueduct.
The aqueduct took us across another river and onto a field that had just been harvested for artichokes. The surface of the field was dry and cracked, and at first seemed hard enough to cycle on. But the slightest pressure on it brought forth a fountain of mud that clogged our wheels and made cycling absolutely impossible. So instead, we walked, doing our absolute best not to disturb the field and unleash the mud beneath.
I mean, you expect some navigational mistakes when you cycle the length of the country, but today's been a bit of a balls up. It's right on the edge of what's fun. I'm still in a good mood about it right now, but cutting it close.
After 3 hours of crossing muddy fields and bumpy old farm tracks, at last we made it back to proper roads. Our bikes squealed in protest at their treatment, but tarmac never felt so good. Despite our morning's travails, the day was really only just beginning, and we still had almost 1,000 metres of climbing to reach Matera, up and over a long series of rolling hills, each one taller than the last. But for each hill we climbed, we were rewarded with a long descent through the stunning landscape of Basilicata.
It is officially 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It is officially very hot, and I have officially run out of water and I'm very thirsty. Luckily, Matera, 12 kilometers out, almost there.
At last we arrived in Matera, where my friend Joe was waiting to meet us. Matera is one of the world's oldest continuously inhabited cities, starting out as a small community of cave dwellers known as the Sassi, before expanding into the labyrinthine city it is today. The old town is the most impressive part, houses stacked upon ancient houses, and all built atop a series of deeply cut wells and water cisterns. And once we'd washed up and enjoyed the pool built in a cave beneath our hotel, we headed out for one of the most memorable meals of the entire trip. A sandwich we later learned was called the Bullet, a thick ball of burrata served with mortadella ham and some of the spiciest chilies I've ever eaten.
How is it, boys?
Oh yeah.
Spicy.
I'm going through waves of immense pleasure and then waves of immense pain.
Is that how you describe the trip?
Yeah.
With 5 days behind us, we'd ridden well over 500 kilometers now, and the Alps were starting to feel that little bit closer. We were about to enter the second leg of the ride, destination Rome. Our team of 2 was now a team of 3, and change was in the air.
Well, good morning. We have escaped the labyrinth that is Matera Old Town and are now well on our way on day 6 of the cycle ride. 105 kilometers to go today to the little town of Melfi. We now have my great friend Joe with us.
Good morning, I am Joe. I've joined here in the lovely Matera. I'm full of eggs, I'm full of mortadella, and I'm full of hope.
Awesome to have him joining. And we're really moving into the second part of this Italian trip.
From Matera, we changed tack, and we're now heading in a northwesterly direction, bound for Rome. But we still had 5 big days of cycling to get there, starting out through the rolling hills of Puglia. Everything in this part of Italy feels ancient. The landscape looks old, a combination of gnarled plants and exposed rock, all hardened by the strong sun and wind. Yet the area also seems strangely hospitable, good for farming, and a cradle of early human life. Nowhere did this feel more true than the town of Gravina, with its deep gorges complete with homely caves for Neolithic humans, and its magnificent limestone bridge, the Ponte Madonna della Stella.
Afternoon of day 6. We had a nice little whistle-stop tour of Gravina and the famous bridge that was used in No Time to Die, the James Bond film. And now we're soldiering on through the farmlands of Puglia, and we've got our first little bit of rain. I think Joe might be a bad omen. Might have brought bad luck to this trip. We've had nothing but sunshine for 5 days. He turns up and it starts raining immediately. If this continues, gonna have to do some human sacrifice.
And oh, did it continue.
Oh, what a difference 24 hours makes. This time yesterday we were sunning ourselves in Matera, enjoying our wonderful panini stuffed with burrata. And now we're schlepping it through the Italian countryside in the freezing rain, about 500 meters above sea level, with a mean wind making it feel far colder than it actually is.
Up high on a ridge, we were being battered by the elements. It had been 27 degrees the day before, Now it was just 6. And had it not been for a couple of sections of road designed by an overexcited civil engineer, the day would have been a complete write-off. There was really nothing to do but to put our heads down and keep on going to the outskirts of Melfi.
10 to 8 p.m. Had an absolute son of a day. Then a puncture which took an hour to repair. Which was an hour too long. Very cold. But we've made it to a truck stop, gas station, where we're having a great panini, and we're about 10 minutes out from our accommodation, back to sunshine tomorrow.
Day 7 arrived, and with it returned the sun. But once again our route was proving tricky to find. We took a shortcut to try and avoid a busy trucking road, and immediately became hopelessly, wonderfully lost.
All right, Joe, Chief Navigator, where are we going?
Chief Navigator, my...
Joe, Chief Navigator. You were in charge of the routes from the moment you joined, right?
Yeah, that's completely right. Totally correct.
2 hours, 2 kilometres, and a few very big puddles later, we made it back to a proper road, and on to the Eurovelo 5, a cycle network which follows an ancient pilgrimage route from Canterbury Cathedral in southern England to Brindisi in southern Italy. It was already lunchtime, and we still had 100 kilometres to ride, and with Joe less than impressed by my choice of shortcuts, I decided to try and win him back over with lunch at a sandwich shop that specialised in artichoke hearts pickled in oil, freshly harvested from the nearby fields.
That is good as well. It's like salami, stracciatella, mushrooms and truffles.
It seemed to do the trick, and with full bellies, we continued up and into the Apennine Mountains once more.
Despite all the fun and excitement of this morning, going through farmers' fields and rivers and whatnot, that actually wasn't meant to be the challenging part of today's ride, because today we are back into the southern Apennines, climbing up into the mountains. We've got about 1,500 meters of climbing total today, a large part of it on the very hill we're on now.
At the top of the climb, we reached Monte Leone, an incredibly windy plateau about 900 meters above sea level, and the site of an extraordinary number of wind turbines.
We are surrounded by many wind turbines, and it is no accident that these wind turbines are here. It's blowing an absolute gale across this plateau. But between all this wind and all this sun, a fantastic day for renewables. And the town we're going to today is called Benevento. Bene meaning good, vento meaning wind.
Benevento sits at the branch point of 2 legs of the Via Appia, one of the Roman Empire's earliest and most important roads. At the entrance to the city is Trajan's Arch, built almost 2,000 years ago to honour Emperor Trajan and his triumphs in battle. All of a sudden, we were feeling a lot closer to Rome. As we began day 8, we were still following the Eurovelo 5, but it was increasingly tricky going. Much of the route north of Benevento is under construction, a casualty of the new high-speed rail line that's being built from the city of Naples to Bari. Every couple of kilometres we would be stuck on the wrong side of a building site and have to take a long detour around it, which made it even more impressive when out of nowhere we were met by a very special new member of the team.
And look who's joined us in the town of Telese Terme. We've met up with my dad, who is never one to be denied a good adventure. So while we've been cycling the length of Italy, he actually decided to drive on his motorbike from the UK all the way down to the very bottom of the heel of Italy to meet some friends there, and has been catching us up over the last couple of days on his bike, and he's now found us. So he will be dropping in and out over the next couple of days as we continue our journey northward.
Dad was not the only one joining us on our approach to Rome, and at the end of day 9, we met my friends Alexis and Gabo for dinner in the town of Valmontone. Our team of 3 cyclists was now a team of 5, fueled by prosciutto, artichokes and ice cream, ahead of our long march on Rome.
I love cycling. This is the best day ever.
My name is Gabriele, and I'm the Italian guide on board. Arrived last night, and I'm in charge of not getting the group ripped off at restaurants, ordering the right stuff.
So I'm Alexis, I'm the Frenchman on board, making sure that the group is getting ripped off at the restaurants. I'm full-on tourist mode, trying to be a full-on French tourist in Italy.
Day 10, and today is the big day. Not because it's particularly long, we're just riding 44 kilometers, but the destination is Rome. All roads lead to Rome today. We can finally say it.
From Valmontone, we had 40 kilometers of downhill to ride into Rome, home to so many treasures of the ancient world. We entered the city through the Porta Maggiore gate in the eastern city wall, riding through the colonnaded aqueduct that has been repurposed into a modern-day roundabout. And so we continued into the heart of the city and to the Colosseum, built almost 2,000 years ago on the ruins of Emperor Nero's palace. We had made it to the spectacular city of Rome, the end of day 10, and halfway through our journey.
Good morning from day 11 of the cycle ride, where we are leaving the magnificent city of Rome. We had half a day yesterday to be proper tourists, and now we are up with sunrise, cycling along the lovely cycle path on the Tiber River to get out of the city before the morning traffic really starts, and to do a last bit of sightseeing before everyone else wakes up. And we have 85 kilometers to ride today to the hill town of Viterbo, and it's going to be a big climbing day. 1,300 meters of climbing to do, a real test for some now very tired legs.
After 40 kilometers of trafficy riding out of Rome, we left the city's orbit and found ourselves on the quiet roads of rural Lazio. We were now over 1,000 kilometers into the ride and well into central Italy, and at the start of a particularly gorgeous few days of riding. Beginning with Lazio's volcanic lakes, vast bodies of water formed in the weathered craters of long extinct volcanoes. This part of Italy is filled to the brim with scenic hilltop towns and castles built with the riches of Rome, including the town of Caprarola, which deserved its own special detour. Situated at the top of a very steep hill, Caprarola is home to Villa Farnese, an enormous pentagonal fort built at the height of the Renaissance. From ground level, it is nearly impossible to tell that Villa Farnese is pentagonal. It's only from the air that you really understand the shape and scale of the palace and its gardens, and the near-perfect symmetry of the town that unfolds beneath it. North of Caprarola, Italy really started to show off. We arrived at the town of Viterbo for golden hour, with its glittering fountains and handsome antique shops full of objects we couldn't afford. And onward still to Lake Bolsena, which caused a certain amount of melancholy in the more homesick members of our group.
This place is very nice. Very nice. Makes me think about my roots. Why did I leave this place?
And coffee.
And espresso, like a good espresso.
With hindsight, it was inevitable, but one by one we were falling beneath Italy's spell. We were now halfway through day 12 and due for an evening at the hot springs of Saturnia. And as we crossed into Tuscany, the landscape became almost overwhelmingly lovely. It had a timeless quality to it, with dusty farm tracks and long rolling hills, unchanged for millennia.
We have just had one of the most incredible descents down through southern Tuscany on our approach to Saturnia. Cycling really doesn't get much better than this. It's just one of the most beautiful places I've ever been.
The town of Saturnia is named after the Roman god Saturn, who according to legend became so tired with humans fighting on Earth that he threw a bolt of lightning at the ground to create a never-ending stream of hot, sulfuric water for us to all relax in. What that looks like in reality is the Cascata del Mulino, a set of tiered bathing pools formed by deposits from the mineral-rich water. The baths are free to enter and have been used for thousands of years by people looking to ease their aches and pains. For us weary cyclists, it was the perfect end to the day.
Alexis, what is today?
Today's long. Today's gravel. Today's Strada Bianche. So excited. And I keep adding some extra kilometers to the route. Some more gravel bits and some more elevation. The team hates me, but I'm quite okay with that.
Hello, and a very good morning to day 13. It is the Queen stage, the most difficult stage, on paper at least, from here in Saturnia in southern Tuscany, all the way to Siena. 120 kilometers, 2,200 meters of climbing, and taking on the famous Strada Bianche roads, the white gravel roads of southern Tuscany. It's a big day ahead of us.
We were straight onto a long, steep ascent, and by 9:30 in the morning we had already climbed over 1,000 meters, and that was just the beginning. Ahead of us lay kilometre after kilometre up the steep walls of Tuscany. There were no gentle mountain roads with snaking hairpins. It was the type of terrain that turns your legs into jelly, and still you must push on.
If any day breaks me, it's gonna be today. These hills are completely punishing, so steep, so tough.
But if you are going to suffer, there are a few places more beautiful to do it. And between the steep climbs were glorious downhills that made it all worth it, as we passed by vineyards, castles, and geothermal plants powered by the same volcanic activity as our baths the night before. We rode hard through the morning until we made it to Montalcino, where Gabo had booked us a special tour at Vigno Soccorso, one of Montalcino's famous vineyards.
Gabo, where are we? And why are we here? We'll find out, but we're in the Brunello region, so I'm very excited to try the wine. It's the expensive one that you find in the restaurants in London, but today we'll try the real one.
Brunello is a brown-coloured wine made solely from Sangiovese grapes grown in the volcanic soils of Montalcino. It is prized for its rich flavour, picked up over a 5-year aging process, 2 years of which must be in an oak barrel. Gabo had made me promise him we'd visit Brunello vineyard on this trip, and the experience did not disappoint. I only wished that we'd planned the day a little better and spent the night in Montalcino to properly enjoy a bottle or two. But we were only halfway done with the day, and we were about to enter the toughest section of the route.
We've had our nice Brunello tasting in Montalcino and are now onto the Strada Bianche. There's 5 of us riding, averaging about 20, maybe 25 kilometers an hour. When the pros do it in March, they do it at 45, 50 kilometers an hour. And there's about 180 of them riding these bumpy, not very grippy gravel roads at incredible speeds.
At the far end of the Strada Bianche, we were met on the road by Felix, one of Milo's friends, who'd ridden out from Siena to join us for the next couple of days.
How are you getting dropped? It's your first ride.
Good afternoon. That was like an hour of the best riding I've ever done. It's ridiculous.
We've climbed over 2,000 meters now and are fast approaching Siena. It's been a monster day. Huge climbs with the most amazing descents. It's been incredible. Really, really incredible. Italy might just be my favorite place to cycle.
With night falling, we made it to the walled city of Siena. The sound of music wafted through the streets, and we followed it to its source, the Duomo di Siena. The Duomo is the most magnificent church I've ever entered, with a vast dome ceiling and an interior stuffed with the statues and paintings of great artists and craftsmen. Draped from the walls are the flags of the 17 neighbourhoods of Siena, each represented by a horse in the Palio, the annual race around the main town square. We had completed the Queen Stage, our hardest day of riding by far, and had been handsomely rewarded.
Well, Siena was just extraordinary. What an amazing city. I'd love to go back sometime when the Palio, the famous horse racing, is on.
Siena had won us all over, and as we began day 14, we had what looked like a modest 85 kilometers to ride to Florence. But the day was filled with brutally steep hills, pushing upwards of 20% at points. And with almost 1,500 kilometers in my legs, I was really starting to struggle.
I'm so done with the non-stop 16% hills of Tuscany. My legs are burnt through.
Luckily, this was Italy, and we were never too far from a slice of pizza or a panini to keep us going. And before we knew it, we were on the outskirts of Florence, where we had to say a fond goodbye to Joe, who'd been riding with me all the way since Matera and was now heading off on his own adventures. Florence was hot, loud and overcrowded, filled to the brim with the wonders of the Italian Renaissance and the fancies of the Medici family. But most importantly of all, pizza. Lots and lots of pizza.
It is May the 1st. It is Labour Day, a national holiday here in Italy. So lots of people out on the road, lots of cyclists. The day is loosely divided into 2 parts. The first half, 47 kilometers and 1,000 meters of climbing up. The second half, 47 kilometers and 1,000 meters down to Bologna. Very much looking forward to the second half. The first half, it's going to be a tricky one.
Despite my misgivings, it was actually a great morning of climbing, on quiet roads through the Bolognese Apennines. It was our last day riding as a group, as we'd all be going our separate ways from Bologna. Me north to the Alps, and the others back home. The days since Rome had treated us all very well, and I'd missed the camaraderie when the others were gone. But as we crested the hill, everyone was in a great mood, especially Gabbo, who was fast approaching his hometown. On the far hills, we could see the San Luca Monastery, the symbol of Bologna, its bright orange walls guiding us home.
And we have made it, at last, to Bologna. A great day of cycling. Flew through the hills, and then an afternoon of non-stop amazing downhill for 47 kilometers. This is Gabo's hometown. He's very, very excited in the background, and he's going to show us a good time here over the next couple of days, because tomorrow is a rest day. Are you happy to be home?
I'm so happy. Can't wait to see my mom. Hi, Mama. But that is the Torre degli Asinelli, the oldest, well, not the oldest, but the tallest tower in Bologna. I can't live, and living without you. I can't live. We made it. Bologna.
But before we could enjoy our rest day, Gabo had one last challenge in store for us: to climb the brutally steep road to the top of the San Luca Monastery. The road is lined with 666 arches and designed to look like a serpent from the air, and it was used as the finishing leg of the Tour de France when it visited Bologna back in 2024. It was a climb I honestly could have done without, but Gabo more than made up for it by taking us all to his favourite restaurant in Bologna, where we feasted on ragu and tortellini, all washed down with flaming sugar cubes soaked in homemade spirits. It was the perfect celebration for our last night riding as a group of 5.
Let it melt in your mouth.
Getting ginger.
Flames. Qualcuno sobrio prima. Almeno qualcuno ci guarda.
Well, good morning from day 16. We are just leaving the city of Bologna, where we had a lovely rest day yesterday. We're staying just outside the city with Gabo and his wonderful family and his very cute grandma, who looks fantastic in cycling glasses. We have 110 kilometers to do today, and most of it is on the deliciously flat floor of the Po Valley. I think over the entirety of today we have 110 meters of climbing to do. So it's flat as a pancake.
We had made it into the final leg of the ride, and we're now cycling across the great agro-industrial complex of the Po Valley. In Bologna, I'd said goodbye to the gang that I'd been riding with since Rome and picked up a new companion, my friend Fredrik, who'd be accompanying me through the Alps to the finish line on the Italian-Austrian border.
I'm Fredrik. I am not a cyclist. Decided to join Oscar, cycling from Bologna home towards Germany. This is my first cycle tour, so if I can make it, I think pretty much anyone can.
This part of the Po Valley is almost entirely agrarian, and all around us grew rice, wheat, and vineyards aplenty. The farms are crisscrossed with canals, irrigation ditches, and waterways, and eventually we reached the Po River itself, crossing it over a grand old bridge. With no hills to contend with, we were racing through the day, and waiting for us by the canal just outside of Mantua was my friend Richard, who joined me last year for the final leg of my cycle across the UK.
Nice to meet you. Fredrik, Richard.
Look who it is! It's Richard Deane!
Hello.
There he is again, this time in Italy.
Always joining on to the end to steal the glory.
5 kilometers outside of Mantua or Mantova. It's been another glorious day.
Now a team of 3, we raced into Mantua, with its bustling old town and a basilica that claims to keep a vial of Jesus' blood in its crypt. We'd made good progress into the city, and the day was still young, so we found a plaza in the sun and chatted the rest of the afternoon away. But the easy riding of the Po Valley was soon to disappear, for ahead of us lay the Alps.
It is bright and early on the morning of day 17 of the cycle ride. Today we have 140 kilometers to go, starting here just outside of Mantua, and then we'll move along the eastern coast of Lake Garda before eventually arriving 140 odd kilometers later at the city of Trento.
Ahead of us, the Alps loomed large, and at their base was Lake Garda, Italy's largest lake, resplendent beneath the May sun.
"80 kilometers into our day, another 60 to go, and we're working our way at speed up the eastern shore of Lake Garda. Got a lovely little tailwind behind us, pushing us along. And I gotta say, this is, in a country of beautiful landscapes, this is a very, very special one indeed. It's absolutely stunning.
After a couple of hours fawning over Lake Garda, we reached the lake's northern tip, and a short but sharp climb to get over into the Trentino Valley, which was filled with immaculate vineyards organised into neat little rows, surrounded on all sides by vast walls of rock.
All the way from Mount Etna, we have made it to the Alps. Amazing. Amazing, look at them. Look at them. Mountains everywhere you look. Today, 140 kilometers, excellent riding with both Richard and Fredrik. Both have been wonderful company today.
We arrived in Trento to find it busy preparing for its annual mountain film festival, the oldest of its kind anywhere in the world. We were now in the Tyrol region, once part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and only a couple of 100 kilometers from the border with Austria. From the architecture to the food, everything was starting to feel a little bit more Germanic and a little less Italian. We were out of the land of tiramisu and into the land of apple strudel.
Don't know what makes it Trentino, but that's bueno.
How you surviving?
Feeling strong. Big day yesterday. Had one big climb that nearly took me out, but other than that, doing pretty well, I'd say. Might make it.
Catch it, Richard. Day 18 of the cycle ride, currently on the outskirts of Trento, heading towards Brixen, 98 kilometers to ride today. And for the first time in 12 days, since all the way back on day 6 just outside of Matera, we have some rain.
We might have had some rain, but our route more than made up for the wet weather. To our delight, we had linked up with the Eurovelo 7, a cycle path that runs for almost 400 kilometers through the Trentino Valley, parallel to the Adige River on what was once an old train track. The cycle path is almost entirely segregated and winds its way gently up through this spectacular alpine landscape.
Really, really nice to have proper, good cycling infrastructure, away from the cars, away from the lorries, surrounded on all sides by these monster walls of stone used by cyclists, runners, walkers, and occasionally the odd sheep, goat and donkey.
Cute.
Once the sheepdogs decided to let us go free, we sped through the valley, pushed along by a gentle tailwind. Being off the main road allowed us to fully enjoy this landscape, and the castles built high atop the cliffs above us.
This valley is insane. What a gorgeous place.
As we climbed, the valley began to narrow, until every piece of infrastructure seemed stacked atop one another. Motorway, cycle path, train track, all converging as we got nearer the head of the valley and the end of our cycle.
It's our penultimate day of the trip, and we have just 10 kilometers to go. to get to Brixen. And what an amazing day it's been. Through a land of fairytale castles and churches lost up high in the mist. Even despite the little bit of rain, it's just been a wonderful second to last day.
Just outside the city of Brixen, we found our hotel for the night and settled in for our final sleep of the trip. Ahead of us, our finish line awaited at the very top of the Brenner Pass.
After 19 glorious days cycling through Italy, it's all come down to this, the final day. A freezing cold, rainy day in the Tyrolean Alps. It's currently about 6 degrees, and man, what a way to finish the trip. Could the weather be nicer? Absolutely yes. Could the landscape be more spectacular? It's hard to imagine.
The cloud clung to the mountainsides around us, hiding the peaks above us and drenching us with their freezing rain. We had 40 kilometers to ride to the top of the Brenner Pass, with 1,400 meters of climbing to get there. And as we climbed, the weather got colder and colder.
We're a few kilometers now from the Brenner Pass, and it is absolutely freezing. Can't feel my hands, can't feel my toes, but we're getting there, getting to the top, inch by inch by inch.
For as long as we rode, the rain would not let up, but neither would we, and soon we were on the final climb through the forest to reach the long plateau of the Brenner Pass.
I can't believe we've done it. Almost 2,000 kilometers through Italy. A few weeks ago, this was just a dream on a spreadsheet, and now we've almost done it. I'm so happy we made it happen, and so thankful to everyone who supported. It's been a brilliant trip.
As we climbed those last few kilometers to the Brenner Pass, I thought back to all that we'd experienced over the last 19 days of riding. We'd begun in what felt like a different world at the base of Mount Etna on the Mediterranean coast of Sicily. Now here we were deep in the Alps, 2,000 kilometers from where we had begun. From the ancient theatre at Taormina to the Colosseum in Rome, the hot springs of Saturnia to dodgy rivers and dusty farm tracks, it had been a journey of discovery. A ride where I'd had to remind myself constantly to close my gaping mouth, awed by so much of what I saw. In the company of some of my favourite people, the ride had surpassed all expectations. The food, the history, the endlessly beautiful landscapes. Italy is one of the best countries I have ever ridden in, and I would gladly do it all again. But now here we were. We'd made it. To the top of the Brenner Pass, and perhaps the least romantic place on earth. More shopping mall than mountain. But it was the finish line. Our finish line. And for me, that was more than good enough. So on the border of Italy and Austria, Richard, Fredrik and I lifted our bikes to the sky, celebrating the journey behind us. It had been almost 2,000 kilometers in the making, and now it was all over. Our journey was complete.
That's enough of all that. Italy. Done.
Where to next?